The Sega Dreamcast, released in 1998 in Japan and 1999 everywhere else, was Sega's final attempt to recapitalize on the glory they faced in the early 90s. Unfortunately, with the worldwide failure of the Sega Saturn just 4 years prior, the company was in dire need of a big push to get ahead of the competition. The large majority of the system's library feels like they were crafted with such meticulous care, and in this new series, we're going to explore both the games that put the system on the map and the ones that flew under the radar. Welcome to the archive. Each game will be graded on 3 categories: gameplay, obscurity, and vibes. Then given a final ranking based on the combination of all 3. With that said, let's get into our first game. Cannon Spike was an arcade game made for Sega's Naomi arcade hardware, which was basically just a souped up Dreamcast, so it's no surprise that it would be later ported to the system. In this arcade shooter, you can choose from many characters either directly taken from or loosely based on existing Capcom characters, and battle through a few short stages with a boss battle at the end of each. The game isn't too long, but that's to be expected of a high score based arcade game. It plays like a mix of a beat 'em up and shoot 'em, with each character having melee and projectile attacks. You can also team up with a friend, which makes the game slightly easier. Being an arcade game though, this thing was made to eat quarters at arcades, and the difficulty spike is no joke. Bosses will spray hundreds of practically undodgeable bullets, leaving you a small moment to attack, and then it's right back to the onslaught. The promotional art oozes that late 90s Capcom charm, reminiscent of the art from Street Fighter III Third Strike. The player characters are a group mashed together from many different Capcom franchises, from Cammy and Charlie from Street Fighter, to Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, to Mega Man. But the art creates a cohesiveness that makes it plausible that all these characters exist in the same place. The in-game visuals are semi-realistic, with more realistic backgrounds compared to the stylized characters and enemies. All the enemies are militaristic robots and mechs, which creates a man versus machine type narrative between the NPCs and players. The music is just about what you'd expect from a 90s Capcom arcade game, filled with energetic and smooth songs to keep you on your toes. Overall, I'd say Cannon Spike is worth checking out if you want a hard game that you can just pick up and play with a friend. Frame Grind is an arena fighter developed by From Software, who are now mostly known for their Soul series. In this game, you take control of a fully fledged mech equipped with jet boosters, swords, blasters, rockets, and all sorts of destructive abilities. There are 3 modes, single player and both local and online multiplayer. In the single player mode, you go through a bunch of fights and collect these gems that you can use to craft new materials for your mech. These materials can range from body part upgrades, new guns, or just general buffs like attack damage. The game's art and environments combine typical fantasy locations and aesthetics with giant knight armor robot suits blowing everything up, creating a nice contrast. The music is a mix of fantasy, atmospheric, and militaristic tracks, with lots of string instruments and army drums. Take a listen. In terms of gameplay, it's reminiscent of FromSoft's other mecha series, Armored Core. The players each control a mech confined to a 3D arena. There's a camera lock on to keep track of the enemy that in my opinion doesn't work very well. and you can shoot beams and rockets at the opponent or close in for a melee attack. The control scheme is a bit strange. You control the mech with the D-pad, and the game uses tank controls, so pressing left or right turns the whole mech instead of strafing, which is done by the triggers. Now at this point you may ask what the left stick does. It controls the camera very badly. Pressing both triggers at the same time and an attack button makes an alternate, stronger attack happen, like a melee chain combo or a really big blast. This game was only released in Japan, so the footage used here was an English patch. Apparently the game was meant to have an English release, but those plans fell through. Frame grind is kind of clunky to control and takes a while to get used to, but I'm sure it'd be fun to kick back and play with a friend. Super Magnetic Neo by Crave Entertainment is a 3D hallway style platformer, the format made popular by the Crash Bandicoot games on the PlayStation 1. Speaking of Crash Bandicoot, one could call this a Crash Bandicoot clone, and the difficulty is pretty on par with the PlayStation games. This game does have something to set itself apart from Crash Bandicoot, and that is the magnet gimmick. Neo can attract and repel special colored objects throughout the level, allowing him to bounce higher, swing off of stuff, and launch himself forward. This game's art style is incredibly charming and definitely a product of the Y2K era. Same with the music, being an upbeat hybrid of techno and jungle. Back to the gameplay though, this game is incredibly unforgiving. Playing this game made me feel like someone who has never touched a video game in their entire life. I played for an hour and only scratched the surface of the game because I was genuinely getting infuriated. If you like the gameplay of the original Crash Bandicoot games, charming character design, and just difficult games in general, Super Magnetic Neo is the game for you. And with that, it's time to say goodbye. If you choose to try out any of these games, let me know what you think in the comments down below. This has been The Archives. See you next time.